everybody else is standing, that's out of respect for the role that you folks are playing in this process. So you don't need to remain standing from now on. You come in and immediately take your seat. You may notice I'm not standing. That's not because I don't respect you, but the judge represents the law, which is over all of us. So traditionally, the judge doesn't stand when the jury comes in. So now I'm going to ask my court officers if you please take your oath.
You solemnly swear to take charge of this jury, keep them separate and apart from all persons, not converse with them about the matters on trial, nor permit anyone else to do so, and return them again in open court on orders of the court, so help you God.
Folks, the individuals that just took that oath, they're here to take care of you. I want you to know if there's any concerns whatsoever throughout the course of this trial, they're the folks that you want to go to. The primary ones you're going to be dealing with, Mr. Thompson back here, he's our head bailiff. Officer Treese is our male uniform officer, and Officer Coker will be your favorite because she gives you lunch every day. All right, so I want you to know if there's any concerns or needs that you have throughout this trial, don't hesitate to go to them. They'll be glad to help you in any way they can. All right, what I want to do now is have the indictment published to you. The indictment is a formal written accusation. It charges them with crimes. However, it does not provide any evidence of guilt against them. So I'm going to ask the Attorney General to publish our indictment.
State of Tennessee, County of Knox, Criminal Court for Knox County, Tennessee, first count. Grand jurors for the state of Tennessee, upon their oaths, present that DeAndre Davis, alias Smooth, alias Dre, alias a juvenile, jurisdiction of said juvenile having been properly transferred by the Juvenile Court of Knox County, Tennessee, to the Criminal Court of Knox County, Tennessee, in accordance with the provisions of TCA Section 37-1-134, and Rashawn Jordan, alias Lil Bax, alias Shawnee, alias a juvenile, jurisdiction of said juvenile having been properly transferred by the Juvenile Court of Knox County, Tennessee, to the Criminal Court of Knox County, Tennessee, in accordance with the provisions of TCA Section 37-1-134. On or about the 12th day of February 2021, in Knox County, Tennessee, and before the finding of this indictment, did unlawfully, intentionally, and with premeditation, kill Stanley Freeman in violation of TCA Section 39-13-202 and against the peace and dignity of the state of Tennessee. Second count, the grand jurors of the state of Tennessee, upon their oaths, present that DeAndre Davis, alias Smooth, alias Dre, alias a juvenile, jurisdiction of said juvenile having been properly transferred by the Juvenile Court of Knox County, Tennessee, to the Criminal Court of Knox County, Tennessee, in accordance with the provisions of TCA Section 37-1-134, and Rashawn Jordan, alias Lil Bax, alias Shawnee, alias a juvenile, jurisdiction of said juvenile having been properly transferred by the Juvenile Court of Knox County, Tennessee, to the Criminal Court of Knox County, Tennessee, in accordance with the provisions of TCA Section 37-1-134, on or about the 12th day of February 2021, in Knox County, Tennessee, and before the filing of this indictment, did unlawfully kill Stanley Freeman during the perpetration of or an attempt to perpetrate the crime of aggravated child abuse in violation of TCA Section 39-13-202 and against the peace and dignity of the state of Tennessee. Third count, the grand jurors for the state of Tennessee, upon their oaths, present that DeAndre Davis, alias Smooth, alias Dre, alias a juvenile, jurisdiction of said juvenile having been properly transferred by the Juvenile Court of Knox County, Tennessee, to the Criminal Court of Knox County, Tennessee, in accordance with the provision of TCA Section 37-1-134, and Rashawn Jordan, alias Little Wax, alias Shawnee, alias a juvenile, Jurisdiction of said juvenile having been properly transferred by the Juvenile Court of Knox County, Tennessee, to the Criminal Court of Knox County, Tennessee, in accordance with the provisions of TCA Section 37-1, 134, on or about the 12th day of February, 2021, in Knox County, Tennessee, and before the filing of this indictment, did knowingly and other than by accidental means treat Stanley Freeman, a child under 18 years of age, in a manner that did result in serious bodily injury to Stanley Freeman in violation of TCA Section 39-15-402 and against the peace and dignity of the state of Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. Dillon. Ms. Mathis, how does Mr. Davis plead to these allegations?
Pleads not guilty, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Robinette, how does Mr. Jordan plead to these allegations?
Please not guilty, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, you're excused, and I will see you later. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the next part of the trial is a presentation of preliminary instructions. These instructions that I'm going to give you are designed to help you understand the outline that our trial will follow, as well as what your job as a juror will be and what my job as a judge will be. It takes about 10 minutes to go through these instructions with you, so please listen closely as I read them to you. The defendants have been charged by the state of Tennessee with a violation of state law. The document containing the charge is referred to as the indictment, and that is what Mr. Dillon just read to you. Each defendant is charged with the same 3 counts: premeditated first-degree murder, felony murder in the course of aggravated child abuse, and finally the 3rd count, aggravated child abuse. The elements of each of those offenses will be defined for you in my final written jury instructions, which you'll have with you during your deliberations. The defendants are presumed innocent and may not be found guilty by you unless, after hearing all the evidence in the case and the instructions of law, the 12 jurors seated in this case unanimously find that the state has proven its case beyond a reasonable doubt. The burden of proof remains with the state throughout the trial. The first step in the trial will be the attorney's opening statements. The state will tell you about the evidence that it intends to present, so you'll have an idea of what the state's case is about. This opening statement is not evidence in itself. The only purpose of the opening statement is to help you understand what the evidence will be and what the state will attempt to prove. After the state makes an opening statement, an attorney for each defendant will be given an opportunity to make an opening statement. They do not have to make an opening statement because they have no burden of proof in this case. If they do choose to make opening statements, I caution you once again that statements of attorneys are not evidence. Next will be the state's case in chief, in which the state will present its evidence. The witnesses will testify by answering questions asked by the attorneys. The questions themselves are not to be considered by you as evidence. Only the responses of the witnesses should be considered as evidence. And of course, that's in the context of the question that was asked. For instance, if the attorney simply says the shirt was blue, wasn't it? And the witness responds with yes, then you may take that testimony to mean that the shirt was in fact blue. After the state completes its case in chief, the defendants will be given an opportunity to present evidence to witnesses and exhibits. The defendants are not required to put on any evidence or to testify. The burden is always on the state to convince you beyond reasonable doubt the defendants are guilty. If one or more defendants do present some proof during their portion of the trial, the state will then be allowed to present additional evidence in what we call rebuttal proof. And if the state presents rebuttal proof, then the defendants will be given an opportunity to present surrebuttal proof. Now, once you've heard all the evidence in the case, the state and the defense may present final or closing arguments. Again, closing arguments are not evidence. In closing arguments, the parties will attempt to summarize their cases and to help you to understand what the evidence has been and what the state will be arguing that they have proven, and the defense arguing what they haven't proven. And once you hear those arguments, I will then give you my final written jury instructions. And you'll have those instructions with you in the jury deliberation room throughout your deliberations. If we end up at the end of the trial, it's time to begin deliberations, if we still have more than 12 valid jurors, I will select by lot the alternate jurors. If we still have 16 of you, four of you will be selected at random. If we lose one of you, then we'll select 3 at random, and so forth until we get down to 12. And so you do not know until the very end who the alternate juror will be, or jurors. So I do encourage each one of you to listen very carefully to the testimony and the arguments throughout the trial with the understanding that you are likely to be deliberating during this trial. However, it will only be 12 at the very end. And so jurors number 15 and 16, I kind of have you guys off to the side. I'm going to leave you there during opening statements because the attorney's going to be standing right here. It's easy to see them from there. However, at any point during the trial, you're kind of to the side of the witnesses, and you may want to see their faces. We have chairs here in the front where you were yesterday, just in front of the box. I'm going to let you decide where you most comfortable being. If y'all like to move up here to the front so you can see the witnesses better, please don't hesitate to do that. We'll be glad to put you guys where you can see and hear clearly, okay? So now that I described the trial itself in outline form, let me explain the functions that you and I will perform during the trial. I will decide which rules of law apply to the case. My decisions will be reflected in my responses to objections and questions the attorneys raise, as well as in my final written jury instructions. It is your job to determine what the facts are from the evidence. You must then apply the law in my instructions to those facts, and from that application, you will arrive at a verdict. The state has a burden of proving the guilt of the defendants beyond reasonable doubt, and this burden never shifts, but remains on the state throughout the trial. The defendants are not required to prove their innocence. You as jurors must decide whether the state has proven beyond reasonable doubt all the elements of the offenses charged in the indictment. You must base that decision on the evidence you hear during the trial. An important part of your job will be making judgments about the testimony of the witnesses who testify. You should decide whether you believe what each person says and the importance of his or her testimony. There is no specific set of guidelines on what you should consider in making those decisions. I suggest use common sense first and foremost. The court will not provide you with a transcript of the testimony at the end of the trial. Therefore, you must listen very carefully to the testimony of the witnesses. Each of you will be allowed to take notes from the trial for your own use during your deliberations. You are not required to take notes. Independent memory can be as accurate as written notes, and that's why I provide you with those notebooks. You can take notes throughout the trial if you'd like to. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Some folks do a better job just paying attention to what's being said and trying to remember the important things. Other folks will take down like almost verbatim notes, and then some folks will just write down the things that they think might be important later. Whatever works for you, that's what you should do with your notebooks. At the end of the trial, once a verdict has been rendered, if you do not take your notes with you, they will be collected by the officers and they will be shredded without anybody ever looking at those notes. So feel free to write down anything you'd like to in your notebooks. During the course of the trial, you should not talk to any attorney, defendant, or witness involved in this case. Please do not talk to them about any subject whatsoever. You may see them on an elevator, in the hallway, or at any other location. If you do, the best standing rule is not to say anything at all. And as I told you yesterday, that's hard for us in East Tennessee, because we're a friendly bunch of folks, and you naturally don't want to smile or say hi to somebody. These people are going to completely ignore you until this trial is completely concluded, so please don't be insulted by that. Also, you may not discuss this case among yourselves until I have allowed you to begin deliberations at the end of the trial. It's important that you wait till you've heard all the evidence, arguments from the attorneys and instructions of law before you deliberate among yourselves. And deliberation can include in something as simple as saying, I like what that witness said during a break. Please don't do that at all. Don't say anything to your fellow jurors about what's going on in this trial until the deliberations begin at the very end of the trial. Also, once again, you may not discuss this case with anyone outside of the trial until a verdict has been rendered. That includes your friends and family. So as you go home, as you make phone calls during the afternoon or morning breaks, you can talk to your friends and loved ones about anything you want to except for this trial. Please don't say anything at all about what's going on here or your thoughts about this trial. Again, you as jurors must decide this case based solely on the evidence presented within the four walls of this courtroom. Because of this, you are not allowed to do any research on your own or try to gather any information on your own that you think might be helpful. Do not visit any places mentioned in the case or try to learn about the case outside the courtroom in any other manner. And again, that includes your smartphones. We've all gotten pretty dependent on our phones, and we will bring up Google Maps, we'll ask Siri questions, we'll Google certain things, look up terms, meaning of words. Please do not do that during the course of this trial. If you did that, then you're going outside of the record of the trial, and that would be a violation of the law. So again, please don't use your phones for anything other than your own personal use for your daily lives, okay? There have been reporters in the courtroom throughout this trial, and I anticipate they will be with us throughout the remainder of the trial. As I told you yesterday, your names or likenesses will not be on video. You can just disregard them. I promise you it's really easy to do. You won't even think about them being in here. However, the fact that they are here means that there are likely to be stories in the newspapers, on the TV, on the radio about the particular case. So again, I'm going to keep you under that information sequestration and prohibit you from watching any local news. If there's some story that you're interested in, you can have your family members DVR it or record it in some way and watch it at a later date. I will also caution you about social media. If you follow any reporters or any friends on social media follow the news locally, please avoid that because we don't want you to be exposed to anything outside of the record of this case. At times during the trial, an attorney may make an objection to a question that was asked by another attorney or to an answer that was given by a witness. This simply means that the attorney is requesting that I make a decision on a particular rule of law. Do not draw any conclusions from the fact that an objection was made or from my ruling on that objection. My rulings only relate to legal determinations that I have to make and should not influence your thinking at all. If I sustain an objection to a question that was asked, the witness will not be permitted to answer the question. Do not attempt to guess what the answer might have been had the witness been allowed to answer. Likewise, if I sustain an objection to an answer or a statement, you must put that answer or statement out of your mind, and you may not refer to that statement in your later deliberations. I'll probably say something to the effect of, please disregard the previous answer or statement. You may not ask questions of the witnesses. It's the responsibility of the attorneys to present the evidence to you, and you have to base your decision upon that. I may ask a question or two of a witness, and I quite often do. If I do, that does not indicate that I have any opinion regarding the facts of this case or any opinion regarding the credibility of that particular witness. Finally, during the course of the trial, I may have to interrupt the proceedings to consult with the attorneys about the rules of the law that should apply. In some cases, we will do that with you remaining in the courtroom. The attorneys will approach and they'll stand here in front of the bench and we'll speak in low voices so you can't hear us, but we're talking about the law. Other times, I may need to send you back to the jury room where we take up a matter out of your presence. Those are important parts of the trial where I have to make legal determinations, and sometimes it's pretty quick and easy for me to make up my mind. Other times, it may require that I listen to more lengthy arguments, maybe even do some independent legal research in my chambers. If that were to happen, and we're having a long delay, and you find yourself back there in the jury room twiddling your thumbs, please don't hold that against either side. It doesn't matter who made the objection or who asked the jury out hearing. If you want to blame somebody for those long legal delays, and they'll happen, just blame me and my poor legal education. I owe it to these parties to get these decisions right. And sometimes it takes me a while to make up my mind. I'd ask you to be patient with me, but again, if you want to get upset with somebody, put that on me. Don't hold that against these folks, okay? So once again, as I told you yesterday, if one or more of the defendants are convicted of any crime, since the state is not seeking the death penalty, then you will have no role in any punishment in this case. If there is a conviction for any offense, the court will follow the law and fix that accordingly. Now, the last thing I'm going to tell you before I turn this trial over to the lawyers is yesterday you probably heard people refer to this as Judge Sword's courtroom. And if you're next door in Division 2, they would say you're in Judge Sanchez's courtroom. And when you go downstairs in Division 3, they're going to say you're in Judge Green's courtroom. Well, this is not Judge Sword's courtroom. This does not belong to me. That's just shorthand that people use to talk about which division you're going to. This is the Division 1 courtroom, and I'm the Division 1 judge. That's why they say that. Well, this is not Judge Sword's courtroom. As I said, it does not belong to me. This courtroom belongs to the people of the state of Tennessee. And guess who that is? That's you folks. This is your courtroom. So I want each one of you to feel as comfortable sitting there in that jury box as you would be in your own living room. I hope I've impressed upon you how incredibly important, valuable service you're providing to our community is. And so I want you to know if there is anything that I can do to assist you in the performance of that duty, please don't hesitate to ask. If you run out of paper or ink for your notebooks, just raise your hand and we'll replace those. If you're having a hard time hearing me, an attorney or witness, just raise your hand, say, Judge, can you have them speak up? I'll turn the microphones up and ask them to speak up. If you want a break, and we took a break 5 minutes ago, we're gonna take another break. We will take as many breaks as you folks want to. I think you saw yesterday, I kind of pushed these things along. I calm down a little bit once the jury gets picked, and I'll be a little less anxious to get the trial moving, and we'll take the time that we need. But if you're sitting there and I haven't given you a break for a while, and you use the restroom, you just need to get up and stretch, or you're finding your mind wandering, please don't hesitate to ask. We will take a break whenever you folks want. As I said, the easiest way to do it is just raise your hand, speak up. You can get my attention, get the attention of one of our court officers. Last person I'm going to introduce to you, see below me here, this is Miss Christy Andrews. She is one of the best court reporters in the entire state of Tennessee. And I promise you this, she is paying more attention to everything going on in this courtroom than anybody else. And she has known me a long time, and she will not hesitate to turn around and tell me to shut up and give you folks a break. All right? That being said, we are ready for our opening statements. I've had you in here for about 20 minutes. Everybody good for openings? All right, very good. Since the state has a burden of proof, they get to go first. Gentlemen, begin your opening statement.
Thank you, Your Honor. Here's your predictor. Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a case about Stanley Freeman Jr. Happened was murdered on February 12, 2021. Stanley Freeman, this is not a case, ladies and gentlemen, that Mr. Freeman was at a place he shouldn't have been. Wrong time, wrong place, hanging out with the wrong people. No. Mr. Freeman was doing exactly what we want 16-year-olds to do, and that is he was attending school on February 12th. He was leaving school, rushing to get to his car so he could rush to get home, so he could change, so he could make it to his job at McDonald's on Cumberland Avenue by 4 o'clock. Now I know as adults you're thinking to yourself, well, if it was me, I would have just taken my clothes to school and changed there. He's 16. Right. I could make it home, done it before, not a big deal. Mr. Freeman, February 11th. And so he was at school, and in 4th block, that's the last period, he was asking his teacher for some, if he could make up that word. Now, Stanley Freeman, he attended Austin East High School. Austin East High School is located, we'll have a better map here, but it's going to be located right in there, and behind Austin East is a baseball field called Claude Walker Field. And Austin East is situated on Martin Luther King Boulevard. Across from Austin East is Jarnigan's Mortuary. Now, Jarnigan's is an African-American business that's been in the neighborhood forever. And they are really nice about letting students park in their parking lot across the street. So you got Martin Luther King that runs in front of Austin East. You've got Hembry Street that runs on the side. And on the other side, you're going to have Elmwood that's going to connect from MLK down to the baseball field. So Austin East is just a sign of times. Austin East is equipped with a number of cameras. That's just the day and age that we're in. And so those cameras are not only internally, but they also shoot outside. Mr. Freeman, after talking to his teacher, finding out about whether or not he could make up that assignment, had to get out of school because he had to go to work. And so Mr. Freeman rushes out of school, he's in a hurry, and he's running out of school with his black hoodie, black t-shirt, blue jeans, ripped, stylish, and his red shoes. And he's running across right there, still right there, still running. And so what he's doing is he's running across the street because his car is parked here in the parking lot. And so he gets to his car, he pulls out onto MLK, and he is pulling down Hembrook. And so what he doesn't realize is that the car in front of him is a blue Altima. And that blue Altima is driven by DeAndre Davis. And in the car is going to be Rashawn Jordan. Now we know that the blue Altima is driven by DeAndre Davis because a young man who you will not meet, but who testified in juvenile court under oath, identified DeAndre Davis as being black. His name is Jeremy Hines. Jeremy Hines is friends with DeAndre Davis. Jeremy Hines is friends with Rashawn Jordan. And Jeremy Hines is friends with Sam. So, Mr. Freeman is behind this blue Altima. What Mr. Freeman did not know is that while Mr. Freeman was in class, trying to get that extra work in math class, the blue Altima is driving around the school, up and down Elmwood, near the park. And there had to be some type of dispute with another Honda Accord, because captured on the video is going to be this blue Altima, and right behind the blue Altima is a Honda Accord. And this Honda Accord, what you'll notice from the video is the front passenger leans out of the vehicle, sits up on the windowsill of the front passenger seat, and leans over the top of the car. Now, this is not Mr. Freeman's Honda Accord. We know because Mr. Freeman's in school. Not only that, this car here has some damage to it, but it also has rims. And Mr. Freeman's car didn't have rims, it didn't have that damage. So this Honda Accord turns around and heads back to Elmwood. So Mr. Freeman is sitting here in traffic. Mr. Jordan and Mr. Davis, they're in this blue Altima. Some of their friends come up, holding up traffic a little bit. I don't know what happens, but something happens to draw their attention to Mr. Freeman's car. Because at 3:38, as Mr. Freeman follows behind and is turning down Tarleton, he encounters the Altima, and Mr. Davis and Mr. Jordan overfly. And bullets strike Mr. Freeman's car. Strikes the hood, front passenger door, front passenger window, back passenger window twice, and the last shot strikes the trunk of his car. And that bullet travels through the trunk, through the back seat, through the driver's seat, entering his body and exiting into the road. Mr. Freeman is rushing away, trying to outrun those bullets. He is unable to, but he continues on down Tarleton. And a neighbor's ring camera captures his car speeding by. Mr. Jordan and Mr. Davis, after firing their guns, have left 45 caliber casings at the scene and 7.62 casings at the scene. They continue on down Tarleton, turn up Houston, cross over Magnolia, and park that blue Altima at 2055 Washington. And that's going to be in an alley behind an apartment complex. They exited that car and get into another car and drop off. Now, because of the gunfire, there are a couple of phone calls that are made to 911. One phone call is made on Charleston, reporting the gunfire. Mr. Freeman has sped down Charlton, trying to get home, turns down, and then he ends up turning down Wilson, but he's been struck. He is bleeding out, and his car ends up crashing into another car right in this area. And when he does, his car rolls over to on the side. Mr. Freeman's arm is extended from the car. And so what happens is the car owner, all they know is they hear a crash. And so they come out, and again, this day and age, they come out with their video, their phone, and starts recording this image. But she also calls 911. But in recording this image, she puts it up on social media. And so social media, it's broadcasted, this crash scene with Mr. Freeman's arm extended out of the car. Mr. Freeman's still alive, and his arm is moving. And this is all captured on social media. She has made the call to 911, and so at this point in time, you've got two crime scenes, right? You've got Charlton, where all the casings are, and then you got this crash scene here. So the police, they show up first at this scene, and officers try to render aid to Mr. Freeman, but to no avail. But the fire department, they show up, and they're able to use the axe to cut the windshield out of the car, and they get Mr. Freeman out of the car, leaving his one red shoe in the car. They get him out, they place him on the roadway and try to render aid to him, and here you see his blue jeans, his black shirt, his black sweatshirt. So they cut his clothing off, they take him to the hospital to try to give him some aid. Forensic techs, they respond to the scene and they process the car there. They end up having the car towed to the garage so that they can process it more to look at all these bullet holes. Another forensic tech responds to Charlton, and they collect casings there at Charlton. Now, the forensic techs that respond to Charlton, what they find is one .380 casing, and they find multiple 9mm casings. And based upon the condition of those casings, they didn't think it was part of this crime scene. It looked like they had been there involved, but they collected them. But they also collected 9 .45 caliber casings and 7 .762 casings. And the location of those casings would be in this area here. So it's going to be the purple and the green. And so they take all of these casings back to the police department for the firearms examiner to examine those casings. So what we're looking at here is going to be these purple casings are the 7.62 casings, and the greens will be the 45s. So the forensic officer collects these casings and takes these casings back to KPD. And so Brian Dalton, he is a firearms expert with the Knoxville Police Department. He examines these casings. And so what he's able to determine is, you got your .380 casing, you got your 9mm casings. It was fired from, the .380 was fired from one gun, the 9mm was fired from one gun. But the .45 caliber casings, they were all fired from one gun. The 7.62 casings were all fired from one gun. So as relates to this case, officers are looking for a .45 caliber handgun and a 7.62 The other forensic officers, they have taken Mr. Freeman's car to the garage, and they're examining it. And so on the hood, you've got this shot on the hood. And they also put directional rods into these holes in the car. And so the story that it tells is that there is a shot at the front of the car, towards the car. There is a shot coming in the side of the car, and then there's two shots here in the back windows as the car proceeds on. And then lastly, this shot here at the very end, which shows the direction that bullet took. And you can see here the direction these shots here across through the window. And so they're able to recover a bullet from the car and some fragments from the car. They're also able to recover some other fragments from some other vehicles in the neighborhood that were struck. And so again, based upon the examination of these bullets and bullet fragments, officers are looking for 7.62 assault rifle and a .45 caliber handgun. So, based upon officers' investigations, they're looking for this blue Altima. Now, this blue Altima is a rental car. The defendants did not rent the rental car, right? Because they're 14 and 15. Too young, you can't rent a rental car when you're 14 and 15, since you have no license. Officers with the Knoxville Police Department, Investigator Phil Jenks, is able to locate this blue Altima at the location where they left the blue Altima after the shooting. And that is behind this apartment complex at 2055 Washington. He locates it in the alley. And so instead of just scooping in and having the car towed, he watches it for a while because he wants to see if anyone returns to that car. Because we want to find out who's driving the car. Right? So he watches it for a while. Nobody returns to the car. So he has the car towed to the impound lot so it can be processed. Now, about that same time, another investigator is trying to work to locate the defendants. And so the way they're going to get located is he's going to apply for a search warrant. And so we talked about in Board Diary about technology and everything. And so he's applying for a search warrant to get the ping location of Mr. Davis and Mr. George's cell phone. And so he fills out the affidavit, he submits that affidavit to a judge and asks the judge for permission for us to get this information. And that's granted. So we get a search warrant for that. We get the records from AT&T, and an examination of those records revealed that both of their phones were right there at the crime scene from the shooting. And so that was something that was examined later. You're going to hear about a CAS report that the FBI created, which will show their phones there at the location. But more importantly, the ping location tells us where Mr. Davis and Mr. George's phones are. And that's going to be at 1614, sorry about that, 1614 Cathedral. So, officers, so now we've got, a couple things going on. We got the firearms expert who's looking at the casings, right? He's looking for a 7.62 and a firearm assault weapon and a .45 handgun. You've got this blue car in the garage waiting to be processed. And then you've got officers set up at 1614 Cathedral looking for the defendants. So the forensics unit comes in on February 16th, and they process this blue Altima. In the blue Altima, what they find, .45 caliber casing, .45 caliber casing, and that's confiscated. This is not like it is on TV. And so that officer rushes that to KPD so that investigator Brian Dalton can examine those two cases. He examines those two cases, and he concludes these two casings are fired from the same .45 caliber handgun, which is also fired from, which matches the casings there at the scene. And it's important. So you got 9 casings at the scene, you got 2 casings in the car. So these 11 casings were all fired from the .45 caliber handgun. Also, what officers were able to do, you're going to learn about fingerprints. And so there are a whole bunch of conditions that need to be present in order for fingerprints to be left. You would think that just because I lay my hand here, my print's going to be there. Or because I'm touching a chair, the print's going to be there. No, that's not the case. But one of the best places to get a fingerprint is not on a handle, it's not on the steering wheel, it is right here on this rear view mirror. And officers were able to process that rear view mirror and get a print from the rear view mirror. They ran it through their system, and in their system it's called APIS. APIS has prints for adults. So if you're a juvenile, it's not going to be the system. So, you got that going on. While officers are posted up here at 1614 Cathedral, looking for the defendants, you got an officer out back who sees a young African-American male come to the deck, and that young African-American male has a problem. He cannot make the identification, he can't identify who it was. It's just, that's what he sees, just because of the location he's at. Officers call for the individuals to come out of the house, and coming out of the house is Mr. Rashawn Jordan, DeAndre Davis. Also in the house was Mr. Davis's aunt and 2 young females. Mr. Jordan is taken into custody, and so is Mr. Davis, but Mr. Jordan, when he's taken into custody, remember Bill James, the guy who found that Altima? Well, Mr. Jordan has in his sock a key fob, and it's a Nissan key fob. And so Investigator James, after transporting them to the transporting, he takes that key fob, goes to the garage, and uses it, and it matches, opens, closes, locks, unlocks the Nissan Altima. So at this point in time, we've got the circumstantial evidence that connects Mr. Jordan to the Altima. His print was later on going to take his prints, and his print, since it's a juvenile, takes his print, it matches the print on the rear view mirror. The key fob in the sock, circumstantially is connecting him to the Altima. He's with Mr. Jordan. They're together. We got Jeremy Hines, who was identified Mr. Davis in the car. So we've got him. Now what we want to do is we want to search the house. And so again, before we can search the house, officers got to come back, swear out a search warrant, swear it out, submit it to the judge, and the judge authorizes the search warrant. So officers search the house. In the living room, officers are able to recover 2 cell phones, and that's not a surprise, right? Because the cell phones are pinging, and so we expect to find 2 iPhones there at the house. And so officers find 2 cell phones in the living room, and that's going to be right past the area where Mr. Jordan and Mr. Davis had to come out of the house. Also in the living room, officers find this Glock 37 45 gap box. Inside the box, there are 3 magazines. The capacity for these magazines is going to be 10 rounds. And so you firearms folks know that when we're talking about a gun that's fully loaded, you're going to have how many ever the clip's going to hold, but you can also have 1 more in the gun. So that's going to be your 11 bullets, right? And remember, the scene, we've got 9 casings and 2 casings in the car. Back on the deck, officers find this assault rifle underneath the table. And so what we're going to talk about is there's an upper receiver, and this is the lower receiver. And so the upper receiver is going to be what's going to leave the impression on the casings, and then the barrel is going to leave the impression on the bullets. On the other side, when you turn it over, you got this sticker here, and this sticker is an Ethica sticker. Ethica is not a type of gun. It's a brand of underwear. So it's a sticker from some underwear they have put on the gun. This is important right here. And so look at this image and you can tell that it's bronze at the top and the lower receiver is black. In the back bedroom, so in the back bedroom, so far we've found here in the living room the Glock 45, the gun case in the living room. On the back deck, we found the Tennessee Arms Company firearm with the magazine containing 12 live rounds with the etiquette sticker. In this bedroom here, we're going to find this AR pistol. This is going to be a 5.56. But what's important about this is it's an assault rifle, and so you've got the upper receiver and then the lower receiver. And this lower receiver is bronze. And so the thing about the lower receiver is that it's interchangeable. And Investigator Dalton will explain all that to you. In the bedroom, underneath this North Face jacket, officer spawn, 45 caliber Gat Glock pistol. And if you turn it over, it's got a laser sight on it. And you see the sticker? The sticker's on it, right? So this evidence is collected. Now, what you want to do is you want to process it because you want to see if there's any prints on the gun, if there's any DNA on the gun. The thing about fingerprints is not going to tell you when the fingerprints were left, right? I mean, I can touch this, touch this computer here. If my prints are on that computer, it's not going to tell you when I left my prints there, right? It's just going to tell you at some point in time during the life of this computer and during my life, I touched the computer. Same things with DNA. If I leave my DNA on the computer, it's not going to tell you when I left my DNA on the computer. Just that at some point in time during my lifespan and this computer's lifespan, there's DNA. Well, I'm saying all that to say that we processed it. Couldn't look at any prints. The DNA, it was like a whole bunch of people's DNA that we could not identify. We're still going to call that expert because we want you to hear it. Let you know we tried. So, the DNA was taken back, the firearms were taken back to the Knoxville Police Department. Investigator Dawson examined these guns and he determined that those 45 caliber casings from the crime scene and from the car were fired from this gun. The 7.62 casings at the scene were fired from the gun. Also, during the search of the house, in addition to collecting evidence, they also took photographs in different rooms, in different areas. One of the photographs they took is in this bathroom. And so, be mindful of the sink. There's a blue shirt here, toothpaste, whatever that is, this commode, plunger, or brush, or whatever. Mr. Jordan at the time was photographed, and Mr. Davis at the time was photographed. So, also in front of the house would be this Ford Focus, so blue Ford Focus. And so it was processed, and the important thing to remember about the Ford Focus is that you'll see that it's got a odorizer or deodorizer, whatever. It's yellow. You see it again here hanging. And the thing about this car is that the stitching in the car and the seats is red. So, we've got the firearms that were used to kill Mr. Freeman. We've got the car that was used by the shooters to kill Mr. Freeman. But we want to know if there's any way, any other evidence that might help us show who was in possession of these guns. We tried DNA, we tried fingerprints, looked for eyewitnesses. What's left? Cell phones. But before we look at cell phones, got to get a search warrant. So we get the search warrant, affidavit, search warrants approved. And looking through the search, looking through the cell phones. Looking through Mr. Davis's cell phone, there's a conversation that starts on February 10th, 2021, that leads to February 11th. Because remember, our murder date was February 12th. And there's a conversation with somebody else named ABK Flex. And they're talking about, ABK Flex is talking about selling a 9mm. And so Mr. Davis responds, I've got a 45. Well, okay, that's a 45. There's all kinds of 45s. On February 11th, on Mr. Davis's cell phone, there's a video of Mr. Jordan holding the 7.62 rifle. Now, in addition to getting a search warrant for their cell phones, we also got a search warrant for Mr. Jordan's iPad. And here are some of the photographs. Again, Mr. Jordan with the 7.62. Mr. Jordan, 7.62. Mr. Davis with the 45. And again, you see that sticker on the side. On Mr. Jordan's phone that night, on February 11th, and that was Mr. Jordan with the 7.62 rifle, and Mr. Davis dropping. So then when we went to February 12th, Mr. Davis posts this picture on one of the social media sites. Again, remember that sticker on the side of the labor site? Because remember now it's the day of the murder. On February 12th, the day of the murder, the video of Mr. Davis and Mr. Jordan in the focus.
Got that nigga in the bag. Fuck you talking about? Got that right.
Remember the red stitching in the seats. So we got the two of them in a car in the focus. That same day, February 12th, at 12:42 p.m., Mr. Jordan posts this picture to Snapchat, and that's going to be the picture of the 7.62 with the bronze lower receiver, right? You can tell because of that right there. And remember the Ethica sticker? And so this is at 12:42. And so when we're looking at these cell phone extractions, there's two things to remember. Some of these cell phone extractions, the time that they give you information on is called UTC. And so if it says UTC -5, then that's just the correct time. If it says UTC +0, we've got to subtract 5 hours. And so just keep that in mind when we're talking with the expert. But in this case, we've got the correct time. That's at 12:42 p.m. Remember, our killing happens at 3:48. On February 12, 2021, again, the murder date, at 1:02, Mr. Jordan sends a text to his friend, LaRock, and says, this is wax. Who did you say had the 7.62 bullets? At 1:02, a few seconds later, LaRock responds back, I got you some. And Mr. Jordan at 1:02 states, bet LMK, let me know when I can get them. And LaRock responds back, I'm already knowing. And this is at 1:03. Remember, 3:38. that same day, we know that Mr. Jordan is still in the car because he takes this Snapchat picture at 2 o'clock p.m. So, again, when we're talking about our cell phones, the cache location, whether you know it or not, is tracking your movement a lot of times. And so we were able to get the cache location from Mr. Jordan's phone. We couldn't get it from Mr. Davis's phone. His phone was older. But the cache location from Mr. Jordan's phone shows Mr. Jordan basically tracks the video from Austin East. You know, that the blue car having the incident with the Honda Accord. Well, that's what you're seeing over here. And it's got the time over here. We'll try to enlarge it a little bit more when it comes time to introduce it. And then it's showing how the car, because this is going to be, this is Claude Field, and this is going to be Austin East. And you're going to see how the car moves down, the cell phone moves down. That's Carlton. And then the cell phone takes off. Look how fast it goes. Crosses. And it stops on Washington Avenue. And what's interesting is that on Mr. Jordan's cell phone, that picture that we showed you of the apartment complex at 2055 came from his phone. He searched that address on his phone. He also put a note in his phone of like parked car, and he gives the location 2055 Washington. So, and again, I keep saying remember, because it's all about time. Since we don't have an eyewitness who can say, I saw these two people shooting, this is the time. So, you know, the shooting takes place around 3:38. And so, after the shooting, Mr. Jordan gets a text from somebody who sends this image here. And this is the image, Mr. Freeman's arm outstretched. And a text that says, make sure that that's not man-man. And he responds, who, man-man, who? And they go back and forth. Well, this image is saved to his phone. Image is saved again at 4 o'clock. That video, remember the lady who called 911? Remember I said that how she was after she reported the scene, and you see Mr. Freeman's arm move a couple times? Well, that video was sent to Mr. Davis's phone, and it's saved.
Oh my God, where the fuck is they at talking about everybody rap, bitch, keep wanting to do all that asking questions, just come on. I don't know his name, I don't think him on my Facebook, keep going. I don't think so. Oh, hit child car. He hit the phone. Oh my God. He hit the mailbox. Y'all, we trying to see who this is, y'all. Oh my God. Yeah, look, oh my God, oh my God. I'm not, damn, what is this mama name? Lord Jesus. Is this one? Oh, his mama live on the corner. I forgot her name. No, this a boy, but his mama stay on the corner. Yo, look at this. Oh my God. Y'all pray for this Lord. Harvey, come on!
This video was received about 5:03 p.m. At 5:10.
Okay, because he got all the mind, and these people they mind.
in focus with the 7.62 and the 45. Back to Mr. Jordan's phone, that night, he and Mr. Davis taking more pictures. So there's a series of pictures that Mr. Jordan's phone takes of Mr. Davis, but the thing about it is, if you look here, 45 is in the pocket. And then you got that red laser sight. Back to Mr. Davis's phone the next day. Now he's having a conversation on text now app. And he's trying to sell that 45 gap. And so he's talking to this person, and the person says, well, send me a picture of the gun. And so he takes pictures of the gun and sends it to whoever it is that's being willing to purchase it. And the guy says, no, never mind. He also takes a picture of the assault rifle. And so we're back to Mr. Jordan's phone on 2/13, again, showing the picture. On 2/15, they're back together again. And you see right here, driving around in the car with the assault rifle. Now, what you will also hear is that Mr. Freeman and Mr. George and Mr. Davis, Mr. Freeman didn't run in their group. They're not friends. But in looking through Mr. Jordan's and Mr. Davis's phones, there were images, because people had published different photographs of Mr. Freeman online when this happened. I mean, it was a sad occasion. And so we found a number of photographs of Mr. Freeman on their phones. So this is Mr. Jordan's phone. This picture was saved February 15th at 11:28 a.m. Also this news article, front page, 2/16 at 2:36 a.m. Just an image of Mr. Freeman outside of school with one of his buddies. Mr. Jordan's phone, 2/16 at 9:42 a.m. And now remember, 2/16, that's the day they're taken into custody. Remember that? And so officers, they arrived there at 1614 Cathedral. They're taken into custody by 11 o'clock. And so this is from Mr. Jordan's phone, 2/16 at 9:50 a.m. And so remember those photographs from the bathroom? That blue shirt. So that'll be a video that we'll show, but it's going to show you that blue shirt and then the gun. Also, Mr. Jordan's phone at 10:24. Remember that officer who sees the young black male with no shirt on, comes out to the deck and with the firearm. Well, at 10:24 a.m., Mr. Jordan posts this picture on Snapchat, social media. And remember that Ethica sticker. Looking back through Mr. Davis's phone, the math teacher, Miss Hayes, she was Mr. Freeman's math teacher, and after this happened, I mean, he literally had just walked out of the courtroom, and so out of her classroom. And so what her job was, as all teachers, I guess she had to maneuver getting the kids out in the parking lot. So she was out in the parking lot when she heard the fire shots, when she heard the gunshots happen. And so she makes this post on Facebook. She's not friends with Mr. Jordan or Mr. Davis. And so this is just a post talking about just how tragic this was. And how like 10 minutes before this happened, you know, he was talking to me about an assignment. Mr. Davis has this post saved on his phone. At the conclusion of this case, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dillon and myself, we're going to stand back before you and ask that you hold Mr. Jordan and Mr. Davis accountable for their conduct on February 12, 2021. It is their conduct that caused the death of Stanley Freeman. It is because of Rashawn Jordan and DeAndre Davis that Stanley Freeman's dead. Mr. Freeman was doing absolutely nothing wrong. He was doing exactly what we want all 16-year-olds to do, and that is to go to school, take up your free time with either an after-school activity or work. You don't need to be running around here with all this free time. And that's what Mr. Freeman was doing. He messed up in math. He knew there were going to be consequences, and so he's trying to get some extra math work so he can have his grades brought up, so he doesn't lose his car, because if he loses his car, he's going to lose his job. He's going to get thrown. That's it. And he's rushing home to change his clothes so he can go to work, but he couldn't outrun their bullets. And we're going to ask you to find him guilty for their conduct on February 12, 2021.
Thank you, General. You have the defendants decide on themselves who would like to go first.
I'll go, Your Honor.
Mr. Robert, may begin.
Good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the jury, Your Honor, Counselor, may it please the court. The best lesson that you can learn is a lesson through experience. And I had this opportunity to learn this lesson when I first practiced in law. And I learned this lesson faster because a judge taught that to me. So, on this occasion, I was in another county, and the state and I was talking about picking a hearing date for a case. So I went up to the podium, I looked at the judge, and I announced, "Judge, I think we may need a hearing date for this case within 2 weeks, if that is possible." The judge looked at me, leaned forward, took off his glasses, and said, "Mr. Robinette, in my courtroom, I do not deal with the ifs, the maybes, or the possibilities. In my courtroom, I only deal with the certainty." And that lesson has stuck with me throughout my years of practice. And that lesson applies today in this courtroom. Now the state has the burden to prove that Mr. Jordan committed the first-degree murder of Stanley Freeman, the felony murder of Stanley Freeman, and the aggravated child abuse of Stanley Freeman. They have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And we had to discuss what that is. Now the state is going to try to prove that by the evidence that they're going to propose to you. Now, they will offer evidence that is collected in the case. They will offer testimonies from witnesses, officers, and experts. And like the state has said, the evidence will show that on about February 12, 2021. It was about 3:30, school was laying out. Mr. Freeman got into his car, was on his way home to change. But he got caught behind this blue car. The blue car that the state alleged where the shooters were in. You've seen that video, right? You can't identify anybody in that vehicle. Now the blue car drove onward. And then Mr. Freeman, after talking to his friends, followed to the stop sign, turned to Tarleton, and you can't see the vehicle. And then a few seconds later, there were gunfires. And the state proposed to you that Mr. Freeman's car was shot at. You can see the bullet holes on it. The question is, who did it? And Mr. Freeman's car kept going, and then came to a stop at Wilson Avenue. Now, the state will have you believe that through the evidence they proposed, that they want you to believe that Mr. Jordan was in that blue vehicle, that Mr. Jordan was in Tarleton, that Mr. Jordan had that gun and shot Mr. Freeman. But what the state doesn't tell you, and the evidence would show that on that day, there were a lot of witnesses. And of all those people, no one could identify Mr. Jordan as being the people. No one can identify him being in Tarleton. No one can identify him with the gun. And no one can identify him as the shooter. And the state did bring up one young man's testimony, Mr. Jeremy Hines. He did testify at the juvenile removal hearing. And in his testimony, he said, under oath, I said under oath, that Mr. Jordan is not even there in that vehicle or at the time of shooting. So at the end of the state's proof, and when the state put the proof up, there are a few things I want you to pay attention to the evidence that the state put up against my client. It's the time, and the two questions you ask is the when and the where. Pay closely attention to those. And at the end, I will come back and I will explain. But at the end of this trial, I believe that the state would leave you with more questions than answers of what happened on that day on February 12, 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not dealing with ifs, maybes, possibilities of whether Mr. Jordan did it. No. The state has that burden to prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Jordan did commit this alleged crime. And if the state leaves you with a question or an unclear picture as to whether Mr. Jordan was there that day, or whether Mr. Jordan was the one that shot at Mr. Freeman, then they have not met their burden of proof. And at that time, I will ask you to render the only verdict that you can enter, which is a verdict of not guilty. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robinette.
I would, Your Honor. May it please the court, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, counsel. Decisions, distractions, and doubts. That's what this case is going to be about. The decisions of the lead investigator to trust the testimony of one witness to the exclusion of others, the distractions in the proof that the state is going to introduce to pull focus from the lack of direct evidence they have about what happened on February 12th, and the doubts that are reasonable and inescapable based on the proof that you will hear in this case. The proof will show that on February 12, 2021, Mr. Freeman left school, he was shot, and he was killed. Interestingly, on this Friday afternoon at 3:30, just as Austin East High School is letting out, the proof will also show that there is not one single eyewitness that can testify that they saw what happened to Mr. Freeman on that day. Not one witness. So the Knoxville Police Department, as expected, launched an investigation. You'll hear from this proof that Austin East High School has many cameras. The state's going to show you the video that we are going to evaluate in this case. So the Knoxville Police Department obtained video footage, and they saw two vehicles. The vehicle of Mr. Freeman and the vehicle that they say was occupied by the people responsible for his death. Investigator Cook will take the stand in this case, and he'll tell you that with the assistance of the school, they identified and they interviewed every individual that they saw walk past those vehicles on camera. They interviewed these individuals. They asked them, did you approach that Nissan? Who did you see in the Nissan? And you'll hear from Investigator Cook that each and every one of those individuals told them a different story about who they saw and what happened on that afternoon. Now, after they evaluate these videos, after they talk to these individuals, Investigator Cook made a decision. He made a decision to credit the testimony of one witness that's going to be very important in this case, Jeremy Hines. That decision by Investigator Cook is part of what brought us here today. Now let's talk about distractions. The state is going to introduce proof in this case about events that have nothing to do with what happened on February 12th, 2021. They're going to introduce social media posts about things that happened before, posts of things that happened after. We would ask you to focus on what the question is you're here to answer, which is what happened on February 12th, 2021. Do not credit those distractions and do not let it pull your focus from the lack of direct evidence of what happened to Mr. Freeman on that day. Lastly, doubts. We've already talked a lot about reasonable doubts. You're probably already tired of hearing about it, but we're going to talk about it a little bit more. The judge is going to instruct you at the end of this case as to what exactly reasonable doubts are. When you hear that instruction, you're going to hear things like use your common sense, use your reason, use your judgment, the experiences that you have in coming to conclusions. Reasonable doubts can arise from three things: a lack of evidence, a conflict in the evidence, and from the evidence itself. And we would tell you that the reasonable doubts are going to arise from all three places in this case. First, let's talk about the lack of evidence. The proof is going to show that the state has not one eyewitness that can tell you they saw what happened to Mr. Freeman. The state told you, we tried, we looked for fingerprints, we did our best, but the fact remains that proof is not there. The lack of evidence is going to leave you with reasonable doubts in this case. Next, let's talk about the conflict in the evidence. You will hear from witnesses and from the investigators in this case that they got conflicting after conflicting after conflicting account of who was in this blue Nissan that's so critical to the state's proof in this case. Conflicting evidence is going to leave you with reasonable doubts in this case. Finally, the evidence itself is going to be a source of reasonable doubts for you. You will hear they conducted an extensive investigation. Investigators which worked extremely hard. They obtained subpoenas. They had assistance from the FBI. They had assistance from the TBI. You'll hear they took swabs of three critical pieces of evidence in this case. The two weapons that they say are responsible for the death of Mr. Freeman, and that Nissan Altima that we're going to talk about this whole week. And those DNA swabs were sent off for analysis. You will hear from the testimony of a Tennessee Bureau of Investigation forensic scientist that the DNA they found on these three key pieces of evidence in this case was positive for not one, not two, not three, but 4 different individuals touched those weapons, were in that car, touched the headrest on the driver's seat of that Altima. Reasonable doubts are present in the lack of evidence, the conflict of evidence, and in the evidence itself in this case. At the close of the proof, you will be left with no other conclusion than the state has not proven their case against Mr. Davis. And we will ask you to enter a verdict of not guilty as to all 3 counts of the indictment.
Thank you, Ms. Mathis. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the next part of the trial will be the state's case in chief. This is a good time to take our mid-morning break, so we're going to take a 10-minute recess. Come back and begin the case. Again, do not assess this case yourself. You can leave your notes in the chairs. Please go, officers. I'll see you in 10 minutes. Okay, 10:45 on that clock, 10:43 in real time, so I'll see y'all at 10:45, or 10:55. All right.
Trick question. Eric, can I see your projector one more time, please? Thank you.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for that break. We're ready to begin the state's proof. Is the state ready for the jury?
Yes, Your
Ms. Mathis, you ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, I'll start with you, Green Marshal. First, with the rial jury. All right, you may be seated. State by the call, jury.
Stay away, John.
Ms. Mathis, by the call.
Wait, Your Honor.
Ms. Ronday. All right, welcome back, folks. So it's time to begin our proof from our witnesses. Do y'all want to start out there? Do you want to move over here? What do y'all think, 15 and 16? Yeah, so you want to take those first two black chairs there? Yeah, that'd be a good spot for you, I think. Might make it a little easier for you to see. And you might want to add this. Those chairs get awful hard after sitting there for a few hours. All right, I think that would be it. And if that's not working, you just let me know. We'll find a better viewing. Okay? All right, gentlemen, you please call your first witness. Okay, nice to meet you. Stand right there, raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give in the case now on trial will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God. Please have a seat, ma'am. While you speak into that microphone, you kind of got to get close to your mouth there.
Good morning. Would you please introduce yourself and your...
I am Shannon Hinchy. I work for Knox County School Security Division.
How long have you
Last
worked?
one for me, please.
Hinchey.
How long have you worked with them?
I've worked for Knox County Schools 3.5 years.
Were you working in that capacity in February of 2020?
Yes.
And can you describe for the jury what you do in that role?
I am considered the lead dispatcher. I'm a supervisor. I am custodial person over the video. If there's a request for a video, I ensure that that video is bookmarked, downloaded, and sent to whoever's requesting it.
And are there video cameras at Austin East High School?
There are,
And were they operating in February of 2020?
yes.
In your particular role and capacity, were you able to download those particular videos on February 12, 2021? And have you had a chance to review them?
I have.
Let's explain to the jury the way that those cameras operate and what we're able to see on those.
We have approximately 150 cameras at Austin East. It picks up the main thoroughfares of the school. It catches the entrances and the exits, the parking lots, the exterior of the school. We can see people, cars, everything. We can sometimes see down the street, that sort of thing.
And are those camera shots kept in accordance with date and time?
They are.
And explain to the jury how that relates to what you see on the actual video.
The date and the time is stamped on the video. It's stamped even with the seconds. Someone can request a video and we can go on and bookmark it and save that video, and I have it from now on. It will never be destroyed.
And I understand that in this day and age, you're able to keep that in a location called cloud.
Correct, it's downloaded through a secure network connection onto the cloud.
And when you are asked to retrieve that, you retrieve it from the cloud.
After a certain amount of time, if it's in the period when it's still on the server that I have, I can get it and just download it directly from the server. Otherwise, I have to get it off of the cloud.
In this particular case, where did you retrieve it from?
The server,
And as I mentioned earlier, you were able to capture the video upon request from the Knoxville Police Department,
yes,
and you then transferred it to a disk,
I do, yes,
and that disk you provided to our office.
I did.
I've marked what is listed as exhibit number 306, and a witness to identify that, and then we will be offering it into that.
You may.
May I approach, Ron?
Yes,
That is the copy of the disc that you burned for this particular trial.
yes.
We'd offer exhibit 306.
Any objection?
None.
All right, folks, the court is going to receive this disc as exhibit 306. Now, when the court receives an item in evidence and says that it will be received as a certain exhibit, that means it's a piece of evidence you'll have with you in your deliberations during the final part of the trial when you're deliberating or reaching a verdict. Now, the number that we assign these exhibits has no significance. It's just in whatever particular order we mark them. So exhibit number 306 is no more, no less important than exhibit number 1. That's just how we keep track of them. But this will be received as exhibit number 306. You may publish.
Your Honor, we seek to publish this not only through this witness, but also through Mr. Stanley Freeman Sr., so he can narrate.
All right, very well. Will we have the last one?
Are you able to assist the jury in locating where this particular shot is taken from?
This is at the back of the school.
And the date and time is located in the upper left-hand corner?
Yes, that's correct.
The street location where the vehicles are departing towards, do you know where that is located?
It runs beside the school. If memory serves me correct, I think it might be Tarleton, but I've not been in that area in a while. I'm not real sure.
And where is the picture shown here?
That's at the school, an entrance to the school. I think it's the rear entrance.
And that rear entrance is a place where many of your students depart from school?
Yes.
And the date and time corresponds to the actual real time that this is taking place?
Correct.
And where is the camera now located here?
In front of the school.
And that roadway where traffic is passing by is located where?
It's directly in front of the school. That's Jargon's Funeral Home across from the entrance to the school.
And do several of your students park there?
Yes.
And where's the camera pointing in this particular direction?
This is on the side of the building there at Tarleton Avenue.
And where is this view taken?
It's one of the entrances of the school. I think it's on the other side.
On Hembry?
Yes.
Pass witness.
Lights, please. Also, next, just run that.
Just go.
Yeah, I can have the projection.
You want the lights on or off?
On. Ms. Chief, how are you? How are you today?
I'm good, how are you?
All right, my name is Ron, and I'm asking a few questions.
Okay.
So were you working that day, on the day of February 1st, 2021?
Yes.
Were you at the school?
No.
Okay, where were you at?
We are located in UT Tower off of Summit Hill.
Okay, so you didn't witness the incident, the shooting, correct?
No.
Did you hear about it? Did you hear the gunfire?
I got calls initially from the Knoxville Police Department.
Okay, so I'm asking, did you hear the gunshot?
Oh, no.
Okay, so to be fair to say, you didn't know what happened at the scene, okay? So the only information you know is based on what the video is telling you, correct?
Yes.
And you have reviewed this video, am I right?
Yes.
And this is the video that you introduced into evidence a second ago, correct?
Correct.
Now, let's take this video right here. This is the back of the school, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, if we play through this. Now, this vehicle right here, can you tell what kind of vehicle that is from this picture?
Not specifically, but it looks like a Honda, Nissan, something of that nature.
Well, you can't say that, you don't see the Nissan tag, do you? Okay, so you can't tell from this picture, definitely it's a Nissan, correct? And you can't
No, I
tell.
cannot tell.
Sorry.
I cannot tell exactly what it is, no.
You can't tell who is driving this vehicle, correct?
No,
You also can't tell how many people are in this vehicle, correct?
correct.
So the only thing you can tell maybe is the color of this vehicle.
Yes.
And now, how many students go to school?
Maybe 2,000, I'm not sure exactly how many students they have enrolled there, I don't know exactly.
Okay, and how many students can legally drive?
I
You don't know, correct? But there are students that can drive, have their car parked around the area, correct?
Sure,
And do you know how many blue cars around the school that day?
I do not,
But do you know if there are other blue cars around the school?
I do not.
Oh, and this incident right here, Besides the shooting incident that occurred, is there any other shooting incident that day?
No,
Okay, so just one, correct?
that I'm aware of.
This picture right here,
Okay.
do you, let me see if we get a close up. You can't identify who that person is, correct?
No,
You don't know who the driver is, am I right?
no,
And from here, can you see the car, the model of the car?
no,
And do you know if these are Austin East students?
I do not.
And this video is on the side of Tarleton Building, is that correct?
Yes.
By the way, these cameras, do they have sound quality or no?
These particular cameras, no, they do not.
So inside camera have sound quality?
Some of them do, but not all of them.
Okay. Now, this vehicle, can you identify what that vehicle is in this
No.
video?
No,
And can you identify who's driving the vehicle?
no,
And can you tell from this video how many people in this vehicle?
no,
Okay. And do you know these students right here?
I do not.
Okay. What about this one?
No, I do not.
And these individuals here?
No.
No.
Okay. You want the sticker? You got three?
We'll just collect it.
Okay. 307.
Do you want to write it or you want me to write it?
Either way.
Well, you write, I have terrible handwriting. Ms. Hinchy, I'm going to approach and you and show you a few pictures. Would that be okay, John? Ms. Hinchy, do you recognize these photographs I scanned you?
Yes.
Do you want to let the others? Is this just a fair and accurate copy of the still shot of this video right there?
Yes.
I'd like to enter this exhibit now.
No objection.
No.
Exhibit 307 collected.
So, I don't need the projected more, Your Honor.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, I do need it. Wait 1 second. This vehicle here, can you tell who this individual is in the vehicle?
No.
Okay, and can you identify what's the vehicle make and model is?
No.
Do you know who this individual is that I was talking to, the individual in the car?
No.
No. Maybe just pay attention. Do you see where that vehicle went? The one, not the blue vehicle, but the other vehicle that went. He went up this direction and he went this way, correct?
It appeared to be that way, yes.
Yeah. But there's no video camera over here, am I right? From the school. So you don't really So there's no camera to depict to show what happened that day on Tarleton.
Not on the corner, no, not on that particular corner, no.
Is there any videos in the school that might capture the Tarleton Avenue area?
I don't know one specifically. I just have whatever they labeled, the people that put in the cameras that I have are labeled by them, so.
So to be fair to say, you don't have any video cameras that depict what happened on Tarleton?
Not that I recall, no.
Okay. And do you know Mr. Jordan, Rashawn Jordan?
I do not.
Okay, do you know if he's a student at Austin East?
I do not.
So I have you on.
Cross-examination.
Good morning. My name is Ashley Mathis, and I represent John Rivers. I just have one question for you. So on the first video that we just rewatched behind the school, we see two vehicles, correct? You see a Nissan or a blue car turn off, correct? We see another car pull into the back parking lot and turn around, correct? That car did not pursue the blue car, did it?
I just seen it turn around.
It turned around and it went
Right.
straight back down the road.
I don't know which direction of them.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, sir?
No, thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Dominic?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. Everybody sit down. Have a good day. Next one.
Who's your projector?
You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to be able to do the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Have a seat, sir.
Would you scooch up nice and close to the microphone so everybody can hear you? Please introduce yourself to the jury.
Stanley Freeman Jr.
You need to speak a little bit louder.
Stanley Freeman's father.
How old was your son Stanley in February 2020?
16.
And where did he go to school?
Austin East.
In addition to going to school, are you familiar with his after-school activities at that time?
Yes.
What did he do after school?
He had a job with McDonald's.
How long did he have that job before this happened?
10 months.
And did he drive to school?
Yes.
What kind of car did he drive?
The board.
And did you and your son Stan have an understanding about what he needed to do in school in order to keep that car?
Yes.
Explain to the jury what that was.
Maintain good grades. Keep his job. Stuff like that.
And around February, did you learn that he needed to do some extra work in math?
Yes.
And because he knew there were consequences, right?
Yes.
So, I know this might be a little bit difficult for you, but I want to go through some things with you about your son. Had occasion to learn about this event, did you not?
Yes.
Okay. I want to show you some pictures of your son, right? And Coach Ron?
Let me see this.
approach witness.
Your Honor, can we approach briefly?
Show you what's been marked as Exhibit 3. And are you able to identify that photograph?
Yes.
Who's in that photograph?
My son, Stanley Freeman.
Read off Exhibit 3.
No objection.
No, Your Honor. Show you what's been marked as Exhibit 4 and 4A, and ask if you can identify anybody in that photograph.
Yes, my son.
And what is your son wearing in that photograph?
A red shirt with some blue jeans.
On the Exhibit 4A, is that a smaller version of that same photograph?
Yes.
Depicting the same thing that you just described?
Yes.
Your son in a red shirt?
Yes.
That's being for identification? Yes. Exhibit 5, you can identify that.
It's my son once again.
And where is he depicted as being seated in?
On the court.
And Exhibit 5A, is that a smaller version of the same photograph
Yes.
of your son in his Honda Accord?
Yes.
That's for identification.
Yes.
Exhibit 6, were you able to identify anything in that photograph that you're familiar with?
Yes.
What is it that you're familiar with in that photograph?
My son's car.
The Honda Accord?
Yes.
And that's for identification.
Yes.
Exhibit 7, is there anything in that photograph that you're familiar with?
Yes.
And what is that?
My son's car.
For identification. And finally, Exhibit 8, are you able to identify anything in that photograph?
Yes.
What is that?
My son's car.
The Honda Accord,
Yes.
for identification. Very well. Freeman, you were here present when we were showing those videos from the school.
Yes.
That one particular video that was depicted in the back of the school, where the vehicle had someone sort of hanging out of it, are you able to identify that particular vehicle as being your son's vehicle or something else?
Someone else.
And why do you believe it's someone else's vehicle?
Objection, Your Honor, respectfully to what he believes.
Now, I'm going to overrule the objection that a witness can testify about their opinion on things that they're familiar with, and if he's familiar with his son's car, which they've established, he can say his opinion that that is his son's car. So overrule, you may answer the question.
Why do you believe it's not your son's car?
My son got hugged out. His car had rims, and it was damaged on the right side with no murder.
I'm gonna pull it up.
have you review it, and you can point out those two differences for the jury, right?
Thank you.
Yes, sir. And also, can you point out the time?
I believe that's February 12th at 3:29.
Wait a second, I'm gonna back up here. Okay, what's the time?
328.
3:28.
Tell us.
So if you could point out the damaged part of this vehicle that's not applicable to your son's car, where is that located?
The right fender,
In that area there?
yes,
The right front quarter panel fender?
yes.
And you mentioned something about the wheels. What are different between this vehicle and your son's wheels?
Yeah, those factory rims, my son had hotels.
So those are factory,
Yes,
and your son had something else?
yeah.
And also, a video of him running down the school.
We have one more video for you to look at that we had shown before where your son was exiting the school. I'd like you to narrate that for us and identify your son. Sometime after 3:31 on February 12th. Does that appear to be someone that you're familiar with?
Yes, that's my son,
And how do you recognize him in that particular scene?
his clothes, his height, run, that's known.
He's wearing those red sneakers
Yes, the blue jeans,
and those blue jeans. He appears to be rushing.
yes,
That is consistent with him having to rush home to get dressed to go to work.
yes,
And that's what you're familiar with his routine?
yes.
Are you aware as to where your son parks his car?
Yes,
Where is that?
Jones, across from Husbands,
The funeral home across the street?
yes,
And that's where he normally usually parks his car?
yes.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Burnett, want to go first?
My name is Robin. I'll be asking a few questions. Mr. Freeman, are you aware if your son had any trouble at school?
No,
Are you aware that if he had any problem with anybody at school?
no,
So based on that, he didn't have any problem with Mr. Jordan, correct?
no,
And prior, do you know if your son had any communication with
No.
Mr. Freeman, I'm sorry for your loss, and I have no questions.
Thank you, sir. Any redirect?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. You may remain for us. I think we have time for another witness, John.
Ms. Hayes? Ms. Hayes?
And if you come up here, just stand next to me. Stand there, raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give in the case now on trial will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. The testing and speaking right.
Please tell us your name.
Stephanie Hayes,
Can you spell your last name, please?
Hayes,
Where are you employed?
Austin East Magna High School,
How long have you been employed with Austin East Magna High School?
8 years.
And what do you do there?
I am a math teacher.
And how long have you been a math teacher?
I've been a math teacher for 18 years
What grade do you teach at Austin East?
now. All grades 9 through 12, a variety.
If I can approach, if I can show you Exhibit 3, you recognize the young man shown in Exhibit 3?
Yes,
And who is this young man?
that is Stanley Freeman.
How did you know Mr. Freeman?
Stanley was a student in my 4th block algebra 2 class in the spring semester of 2021.
So you say the 4th block?
Yes,
What hours would that be?
that was from about 2:05 to 3:30.
And so what class was he taking?
Algebra 2.
Algebra 2. Now, directing your attention back to February 12th, 2021, do you recall that day?
I do.
Do you recall any encounters that you had with Mr. Freeman?
I did. I had seen him earlier in the day. I was standing out in the hallway doing Call of Duty. He was standing at our doors in between classes. And he had walked by me and said hello to me in the hallway. That was the first time he initiated contact, so it kind of stuck out. And then he was in my 4th block algebra 2 class. He had a makeup assignment from the day before that he had not completed. So he had come to me and asked me for some assistance with the assignment. And I had helped him on and off throughout the class that day.
And so about what time would it be that you last saw him that day?
At 3:30 when we left when the bell rang.
And that's when school is out?
Yes,
So at 3:28, Mr. Freeman was in school?
yes,
He was in your class?
absolutely.
He was not outside driving around?
No, ma'am.
So whenever school let out, what happened? What did you do?
When school let out, the students had left. I had walked down to the back parking lot. I typically stand out in the back parking lot, say goodbye to students, do duties in the afternoon. And the shots, I had heard the shots out back, ushered some students back into the building to safety.
Now, did you come to realize that Mr. Freeman had been shot?
I did later that evening, yes.
Did you post something on Facebook?
I did.
If I can approach and show you Exhibit 9, for ID purposes. You recognize what's shown in Exhibit 9?
I do.
And what is Exhibit 9?
That is a Facebook post I made the day after the incident, just recognizing what had happened and explaining where he was that day, and just wanting to let everybody know what those last moments were.
I can make this Exhibit 9 for ID only.
That's fine.
And Exhibit 9, is this just a blown up copy of what's on the second page?
Yes,
Now, your Facebook, is that private or public?
it is private.
Do you know Rashawn Jordan
I do not.
or DeAndre Davis?
I do not.
Are y'all friends on Facebook?
No,
Any reason for them to have your Facebook posted?
no.
Austin East High School, that's located here in Knox County.
Yes.
What's the address of Austin's High School?
2800 Martin Luther King Boulevard,
And what's right across the street from Austin East?
the gentleman's funeral home.
And you're aware of whether or not students park there in the parking lot?
I've heard that they do, yes.
That's what's.
Mr. Romney, you want to go first?
Say something interesting. My name is Mr. Romney, I'll be asking you a question.
Okay.
So, you stated that you have Facebook, correct?
Yes.
You made that post on Facebook,
Yes.
notification from now, how many friends do you have on Facebook?
I don't know.
The last time you posted something, is there a lot of people comment on your Facebook post?
Not really, less than 15 usually.
Okay, so when you post on Facebook, only your friends can see that, correct?
Yes.
Do you have students as your friends on Facebook?
Not personally, no.
Do you have other teachers?
Yes.
So all the people who are friends on your Facebook, they have access to your Facebook post, correct?
Yes,
And you say that you don't know Mr. Jordan, am I right?
that's correct.
So you don't know if he was at school that day or not,
I
correct?
do not.
And if you don't know, do you know Mr. Jordan is a student at Austin East?
I do not.
Thank you.
Mr. Rice?
I have no questions, Ms. Hayes.
Peter Rack?
No, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Short or long?
Short.
Okay, next one.
Mr. Cole. Thank you, ma'am. That's the day. 3 still shots.
Sir, do you come up here to stand next to me, please? Right over here where Mr. Thompson is. Stand there, do the ready right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that testimony about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please have a seat, sir. Speak your mind.
Please tell us your name, sir.
Chris Cole,
Can you spell your last name?
CULT.
Sir, if I can direct your attention back to February 12th of 2021, were you living on Tarleton Avenue?
Yes,
Now, was it a house or an apartment?
the house,
And did you have some type of recording device set up outside?
through the window,
Through the window, and how many different recording devices did you have?
4 or 5, I'm not sure.
And did you provide video from that incident to the police department?
Yes,
If I can approach. Let me show you what's been marked for ID. Do you recognize Exhibit 6,
yeah, that's off my front porch.
your front porch? I'd like to make Exhibit 6, move that into evidence.
Objection.
No, Your Honor.
No, no.
Clear.
Exhibit 6.
Exhibit 7,
It's off my front porch.
I'd like to move Exhibit 7 into evidence.
Objection.
No, Your Honor. Exhibit 8,
Yeah, it's off my front porch.
move that into evidence.
Without objection to the exhibit.
And we would like to, do those appear to be still shots from the video that you provided to the police department?
Yes,
We would like to move the video in as Exhibit 10.
Objection.
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
Your Honor, we could publish these 3 videos to the jury. Sir, where are we looking at here?
it's off the living room.
Off your living room? And the street in front, what street is that?
That's Tarleton Avenue.
Carlton? Where are we looking at here?
Through the back bedroom.
And what's the name of this road here? Is that the alley?
That's the alley.
What street is this back here?
Ontario, I think.
This image here, what street is that right here?
Tarleton Avenue.
And this is your front porch?
Yes.
And your house is located here in Knox County?
Yes.
That's
Mr. Cope, how are you doing today?
Yes.
My name is Wayne Robinette, and I'll ask you a few questions. So were you home that day?
No.
So you didn't witness anything that happened?
No.
And the only thing you know about the whole incident is based on what displayed on the video. Now, in the last video you saw your vehicle driving past Tarleton, going past your house, is that correct?
Yes.
And can you identify any person who's in the vehicle?
No.
Do you know who they are?
No.
And do you know Mr. Rashad Jordan?
No.
That's all I have.
Morning, Mr. Colt. My name is Gregory Isaacs, and I represent Mr. Davis. The cameras that are posted outside your residence, did they run on a continuous stream?
No, they're inside the window. They just pick up motion.
They pick up motion, correct? So if a car went down Tarleton, that would activate the motion sensor and activate the camera, correct?
Yes.
And the vehicles that we just saw in the clip that the state played, there is not a capture or a photograph or a video of an Altima, correct?
I don't know if my car is.
Well, I'm sure they asked you repeatedly if there were pictures of an Altima, did they not?
No.
No? And is that all of the footage that depicts vehicles that were in front of your house at that particular time?
Yeah, whatever the video showed.
And can you give me your address, please?
It's 2724 Tarleton Avenue.
2724.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. No more questions.
Jeremy, right?
Just briefly. Just- Is that 307 that Mr. Robinette entered? Yes. I can show you exhibit 308. You recognize this as being Charlton, Harrison, Wilson?
Yes.
Recognize this is Houston?
Yes.
Do you see, what did I say, 308? Do you see on 308 where your house is? I wasn't expecting it. You see those markers right there? Can you use a red marker and just circle the area where your house is? And if you don't mind, just write CC. You're going CC. And so for the record, you have marked CC on exhibit 308, and so your camera captures the car, the Honda driving down Tarleton, right? So if a car were to have turned down Houston, it would not have been caught on your camera. So if I can publish just his marking to the jury.
Yeah.
Didn't want to move this into evidence yet because other people are marking it. So he's marked CC here. Thank you, sir.
For purposes of the record, is that, what is that exhibit number if it's not being?
308.
308?
Any recalls?
No.
Robinette?
No, yeah.
Thanks, sir, you guys sit down. All right, Dylan? Yeah, okay.
I was going to say,
Your license here, but Ms. Fitzgerald doesn't want you to says yes. Now, we really try to accommodate these witnesses as much as possible. We are still getting your lunch set up. This witness will not take long, so you don't need to call your next witness.
Michael Nace, please.
Who did you say, Mr. Dillon?
Michael Nace.
Michael Mays?
Michael Nace.
You solemnly swear or affirm that testimony about to give, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, sir. Have a seat. Welcome back, Mr. Mason.
Good morning, sir. Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Michael Allen.
Who are you employed, sir?
I work for the Knox County Emergencies Communications District, Knox County 911.
What are some of your duties and responsibilities?
I keep the records that come in.
And in doing so, are there circumstances in which you are called to testify in court like you are today?
Yes, sir.
And when a particular call is made to your dispatch center, can you explain to the jury how that works and what your system operates?
When a call comes into the 911 center, it's immediately recorded into our recording system. We start the process of sending a call to dispatch through our CAD system. CAD stands for computer-aided dispatch. Anything that we enter into the computer or updates or do any kind of action in the system, it documents it on a report that can be exported at any time.
And in this particular case, has your office been asked to provide not only a disc of the recordings, but a copy of the CAD reports?
Yes, sir.
May I approach you?
Show you what's been marked as Exhibit 1. Are you familiar with that document, sir?
Yes, sir.
And what is that document?
It's a CAD report from an incident on February 12, 2021 from our computer system.
Does it fairly accurately represent the information that your system developed during that particular call?
Yes, sir.
We'd offer Exhibit 1.
Well, Your Honor, I would object for lack of foundation unless this person is directly familiar with the CAD reports.
I think I mean, we didn't go into it in detail, but I guess we'll go into it in detail. If you lay a foundation.
Certainly. Can you describe the actions of the people that take these calls and produce those reports?
Okay. The information is taken in by what we call the call processor. They are trained through the 911 system, have code, and they take the call. They enter that call service into the computer.
Your Honor, at this point, I would object to hearsay in terms of this witness being able to lay the appropriate foundation. I think he could lay the foundation for the 911 call. We would object to him laying the foundation for other people, what they do, if they're not his job responsibilities.
It's the CAD system that is created by E911. It is not created by these other agencies. He is the custodian of the record. And so there may be an objection some other objections to hearsay in there, but as far as the objection that you're making about his ability to authenticate the CAD report or the entries in it, he's a custodian, he's testified 5,000 times about this. And so based upon that objection, I'm going to overrule.
Then we would object to hearsay.
Okay, well, I'll have to review it later to determine whether or not there's inadmissible hearsay, but I mean, he is the custodian of the CAD report, so make
In the process of your operators making this report is generated,
Yes.
and you as the custodian of records have seen hundreds, if not thousands, of these particular reports.
Yes, sir.
And they fairly and accurately represent that information which is inputted into the system.
Yes, sir, it is.
We would again renew our request to.
I'll need to review it to see if there's inadmissible hearsay, and if it's subject to that, it'll be exhibit 1.
Very good. Show you what's been marked as Exhibit 2. Can you identify that?
Yes, it's the audio files for this incident that were created.
And pursuant to the request of our office, did a copy of that audio file get burned onto that disk?
Yes.
And that fairly and accurately represents the disk that contained that information from that call, those 2 calls.
Yes, sir.
We'd offer Exhibit 2.
Inject exhibit 2. On that.
Oh, yeah.
Hearing none, the exhibit 2.
We'd ask to publish Exhibit 2.
May publish.
Call 1 on Friday, February 12, 2021 to 3:50 p.m. with a GMT offset of -300 minutes. Agent ID is extension is 203.
Not 10 hours, where's your emergency? Something better than emergency. I just got down my head and shooting and shot my car. Where's the fat man? 2808 Collins Avenue. 2808 Collins. Yes. Okay. You tell what time the car was? I didn't see it. I was inside with my 3 kids. I just walked outside and seen the bullet hole in the back of my car and their shells laying all over the ground. We heard it, so I ran them upstairs to get them from the lower floor. Okay. What's your name, man? Millie Earl. Millie, what's your phone number? 865-441-2099. Okay, you want to see an officer? It's the call right here. Okay, go ahead, talk to me. Yeah, there's one right here, and then they just let you down. Okay, go ahead. Who's there? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Call 1 on Friday, February 12, 2021 to 3:40 p.m. with a GMT offset of -300 minutes. Agent ID is extension is 201.
Hey, somebody just lined up that street and they hit my sister's car in front of our house. Okay, what is it? In the car is smoking in the car. It was on the side and they can't get out. Okay, what's the address? 2522 Wilson Avenue. Good. You act like you can do something. What kind of car is it, man? It looks like it's a Jag. Well, it's a Jag. What color? It's a 2-car. It looks like it's black. It looks like a Honda. What color is it? It's a red Chevy Cruze. Okay, and the people in the black car are shot? Yeah, that's in the car. Okay, what's your name? Okay, and are you calling from 287-6688? Yes, I just oh, you okay? Okay. Yes, he's moving. Yeah, we got everybody in route. We got police back on time route for them, okay? Okay. All right, bye. Come on, Mom.
Passing.
Cross-examination.
Good afternoon. My name is Gregory Isaacs. I represent Mr. Davis. And you did a search of all the calls that came in that area, that time, that are relevant to this case, correct?
Yes.
When I say you, the Royal U 911, your agency. No one called regarding a blue Nissan, correct?
I didn't get a call that had anything like that.
And there were no calls where any witness or individual indicated that they saw a shooting, correct?
No, not outside of these two events that we had, that I found in that area.
Nothing further.
What's wrong with that?
I don't have any,
You don't want to, right?
no.
Thanks, Mays. Have a good afternoon. All right, folks, that was excellent. Do not discuss this case among yourselves. Again, you can leave your notebooks in your chairs. Please go to the office. Hope you enjoy the rest of it. Okay, folks, next one, 3 hours, see you at 1 o'clock.
Thank you, Your Honor.